The horror genre really brings out the worst in people. And I don't mean that in the sense of malicious murderers, supernatural psychopaths, and asshole abominations who have been turned to evil and are out hunting for blood, but they're poor, unfortunate victims that are quite literally scared stupid. It might be life or death or whatever, but how often do we need to be told not to split up, or not to investigate the weird screaming noise, or not to touch the floating demonic sigil covered in acid that we just found in a booby-trapped ancient ruin before the lesson really sticks? Many times apparently. Many, many times. Hey, at least you have some sense of agency over the stupid in video games. Not that it helps much, as these absolutely dreadful choices have long since proven. I am the relative genius, Ash from WhatCulture Gaming, and these are 10 really stupid decisions in horror video games. 10. Unshackling the AI. System shock. Now, considering the whole situation of system shock, there is some sort of logical sense that dictates why this should happen in the game, or something. In reality though, if you're hacking into a space station that's controlled by an AI so advanced it needs shackles and inhibiting systems put into place, then maybe read the room a bit when it comes to fiddling around with taking those off. Or maybe don't take them off at all. Shodan's murderous, tyrannical rampage across the Citadel station could have been stopped completely by simply choosing a different method of hacking into her systems. Whilst our nameless hacker protagonist could be argued to be in a bit of a corner with taking them off since he's being held by the Tri-Optimum Corporation, he could have very easily just put them back on again afterwards. Or better yet, had his military implant upgrade be installed after he'd left the station, so he wasn't stuck in a 6-month coma on board a vessel that has just become sentient, thanks to his own doing. The real stupid decision here is deciding to hack in at all. But really, what can you do? 9. No backup systems. SCP containment breach. For a containment facility packed to the brim with supernatural entities able to kill, maim, and threaten world collapse with their insane physical and mental capabilities, you'd think they'd take better care of making sure there is no way such a bunch of beasties could possibly get out. Better yet, you'd make sure that your controlling systems were absolutely watertight, especially if you know that there's monsters out there capable of hacking in and messing everything up. And an organisation that is more than happy to give them access that has already bungled a number of other sites. SCP containment breach reveals that SCP-079, another AI with an attitude problem, has been unleashed in the facility and released all of the charges kept there. But realistically, even lesser companies that aren't housing interdimensional horrors have backup generators, or control mechanisms that could be accessible for workers in an emergency situation without a pesky AI being able to get all up in there and do as it pleases. It's likely more complicated than it sounds, granted, but what happened to good old petrol motor generators and a padlock on every door? And just, most importantly, not leaving your post when you're on watch for a coffee. 8. Going to a town built on a portal to hell. Fatal Frame 2 Crimson Butterfly. Fatal Frame 2 Crimson Butterfly is a wonderful little horror game, setting up a mystery that sees two sisters trapped in a supernatural town. It's how they get into this whole mess in the first place, though, that feels like a somewhat avoidable situation. Their first mistake is travelling to a forest that has a big old legend about people that get lost in it never coming out again. But let's just ignore that for now. The main problem that serves Mayo and Mio terribly throughout the gameplay is deciding that it's a good idea to chase after butterflies that are obviously not of this world, glowing demonic red and leaving sparkling paths in their wake. That is not normal butterfly behaviour, and the whole follow the butterflies line from Harry Potter really doesn't stand up when the things look as frickin' weird as this. Of course, they're butterflies connected to a village that was decided to be built upon a portal to hell itself, too. There's better plots of land out there for your township to be slapped on top of, surely. 7. Attempting a murder plot with no memories. Amnesia. There has been no time in recorded history, whether fictional or not, that deciding to give yourself amnesia has worked out well. We'd all go hunting about for the holes in our memory given half the option, and Amnesia's Daniel plays into this truth adeptly as the infamous horror game spans out. What he learns, of course, is that he was a terrible person with a past he wanted to forget so he wouldn't have to live every day in eternal suffering. Daniel stole an alien orb from a dig site that resulted in his stalking by unspeakably horrifying monsters, of which he had to keep at bay by committing ritual murders as instructed by a man named Alexander. The whole bad decision here boils down to one simple question. Why why not just kill Alexander before wiping your own memory? Leaving yourself a death note when you know you'll wake up with no memory of your crimes is just strange. Might as well get it all over with to avoid the chance of memory wipes you wanting to, understandably have good reason to end a stranger's life. 6. Going in alone. Resident Evil 7. Resident Evil 7 Biohazard was a fantastic step for the franchise into the good old grotty game content, seeing Ethan Winters attempt to find his missing wife in a farmhouse in Louisiana. And as in all good slasher territory, the farmhouse and its residents are none too friendly, resulting in a nightmarish turn for our protagonist and the hunt for Mia. Now, nobody is saying you should have expected a house full of murderous cannibals and a strange infection plaguing the Baker family home, but you'd at the very least tell someone important where the hell you're going. Yes, Ethan rings his friend to tell him he's going off on an adventure. But if your wife turns up on video out of the blue 3 years after she's disappeared off the face of the earth, the very least you do is maybe contact the police, no? You might not have to kill your own wife and watch her reanimate in front of you in that way. Or at least put it off for a bit whilst they figure out what's going on without the chance of imminent death at any moment. 5. Joel's selfishness. The Last of Us. This is a pretty controversial choice, and not one everyone will agree with. But objectively, the ending of The Last of Us can definitely be argued as a really stupid decision. While the emotional impact and reasoning of Joel's choice are all absolutely perfect, and the humanity behind his decision-making undeniable, the final choice he comes to is the most ridiculous one when it comes to rebuilding Earth and ensuring that humankind actually survives. When faced with losing his surrogate daughter Ellie, whose immunity to the cordyceps fungal infection could provide the scientific breakthrough the Firefly Collective needs to produce a vaccine, Joel decides to take her back. He manages to fight his way into a procedure, murder the surgeons, and runs away with her after finishing off the head of the Fireflies herself, Marlene, resulting in a world that could very realistically become overrun with the infected and never recover ever again. All for the love of one little girl. 4. Leaving the dog. Blair Witch. Right, let's just get one thing straight here before we move on to the very good boy, going alone into a forest that is surrounded by evil urban legends about a witch and has a track record of people going missing, whilst knowingly suffering from PTSD is already a particularly stupid idea. Even more so when Ellis's real reason for forcing himself through it is because he is looking for the missing brother of a boy he accidentally shot whilst working as a police officer. That ties in to his PTSD. He is far too close to what's going on to be able to actually handle it. But leaving Bullet? Really? One of the few choices on this list that is up to the player, you can chuck the one thing that you regard as family and has acted as your lasting connection to sanity on the ground and happily run off, or hold on to him until the bitter, unconscious end. Dropping him, of course, makes you a terrible person, both in reality and in the game, resulting in the worst of the branching endings getting locked in the moment you lay him down. And really, so it should. 3. Pissing off the fisherman. Man of Medan. Perhaps the best part of horror as a genre is that nobody in it knows they're a part of it. So what are seemingly benign choices to in-game characters can appear as ragingly stupid to anyone on the outside. However, whilst that might be true of most situations, like jumping into the ocean all carefree before realising sharks are in the water perhaps, Man of Medan's Conrad is just an ass from the outset. In particular, his choice to enrage a group of passing, aggressive fishermen by throwing bills at them for literally no reason whatsoever stands out as brain-scramblingly stupid. What exactly is he trying to achieve here? I have no idea. All he's doing is pointing out to a group of very piratey-looking individuals that he has money coming out the wazoo, whilst they're in the middle of the ocean away from any conceivable help. Good thinking, Conrad, you idiot. 2. Hiding in an Iron Maiden. Haunting Ground. Haunting Ground has been remembered largely for turning the sexualization of its female protagonist into an actual instrument of fear. But if you look past that and the Clock Tower-inspired goodness, there is one glaringly stupid decision that also lasts the ages. When being hunted by Daniela, Fiona has to hide so as not to be found and murdered. You know, the usual. With one room containing a lovely, convenient Iron Maiden that you can shack up in the hopes of Daniela not spotting Fiona on her rounds. Of course, if you choose to go in, Daniela spots her. And of course, the Iron Maiden is in full working order. So what happens next? Fiona dies a terrible, gruesome death. And you can try again without deciding to stick yourself in an instrument of death that makes Daniela's job far easier than it should be. hey, at least some lessons were learned. 1. Turning the machine on. Bendy and the Ink Machine. A neat little indie game with a luscious art style, Bendy and the Ink Machine starts out with retired animator Henry returning to his old place of work after getting a strange letter from his old employer, Joey Drew. So far, so good. It's an innocuous story about two pals reconnecting over their love of inky animations. Only when Henry turns up to the studio to find it abandoned, as well as a strange puzzle come ritual intended to turn a central machine on that is surrounded by rooms smeared with creepy messages, you'd think he'd take a rain check and come back when Joey's around to tell him what the hell is going on. Even more so when he finds a tape suggesting some real weird shit went down in the machine's creation. But hey, let's just work really hard to put all this together and turn it on anyway, right? Henry deserves all of the ink demon evilness that he conjured for this absolutely boneheaded decision. Learn to leave well alone, guys, and ink monsters won't come and fuck you up for touching their stuff. And that's our list. What other dumb ways to die are there in horror video games? Share your thoughts in the comment section below. I've been Ash and this has been WhatCulture. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe and just employ some critical thinking next time you stumble into a horror plot. Try not to get murdered, and thanks for watching.